So this is Happiness Part 8. I was describing the bird impersonation experiment. Gradually, students, and this happened in all six classes, gradually each student would jump in, and the atmosphere got to be party-like. And mostly they were helping each other. I mean, people would encourage each other to do it, people who weren't bothered by this. And that was about 15–20% of the people. This was not really something very scary, but 80% of the others. And then I had one woman tell me after class that she has chronic panic attacks, and that she has this anxiety disorder, but she didn't want to try to get out of it. And she actually did, really went out of her way, stood on a chair and did stuff. She wanted to do it right, and she was kind of trembling, but she was so proud of herself, and rightfully so. So the responses I was getting on there, as the time passed, when people actually did it, I'd get +9, +8, +7 scores, that were like people put for having intercourse. It was the relief of the tension. That's part of it. The contrast between the tension and the relief. The relief feels phenomenal. But there was also, a lot of interaction between the students having nothing to do with it. They were talking to each other, laughing. It was they were acting differently toward each other. It had gone from being an atomized group of people who were only sharing a room with each other because, they were technically enrolled in the same class, to people who were enjoying the interaction. I was struck by that. And they asked early in this thing what the justification was for me doing this, not at the end of it, early, and then later also. And I said, early I said, I can't tell you because that'll ruin the whole, that will ruin the experience and the experiment. And then later I said, the degree to which people can be fearful of something that when you examine it under a microscope, all they had to do, was look a little silly in front of other people. And that's only silly, if they perceive themselves that way. Because, nobody was terribly good at it, and nobody was bad at it. And so they had to, first of all, the people guessed, so all the other people were involved. And it got to be a really fun experience for them. For most people, the last half of the period was, a really very, very high scores, a good experience. My interpretation is one that the need to perform well, that is, not to look silly because you're not good at this, that was something that was present, and the fact that they were really hungry for interaction with other people. That was the most striking thing. Okay. This is something particularly Americans need, because the society is so set up to isolate people. The motivations are in that nature. And because so much stuff is competitive. And it was interesting. It wasn't easy for me to do this. First of all, any of them could have complained to school administrators, and it's possible where I could have gotten into trouble. I didn't really care about that. I've done stuff like this all the time. But what was relevant was the fact that I had to get them to do it, and they hated doing this, and so I had to coax them into doing it. I've done this with therapy groups in a residential treatment center for addicts. Done it at outpatient groups at a psychiatric, an outpatient psychiatric facility, and the degree to which breaking the tension and the degree to which this interaction with people in a playful way can be induced and is so enjoyable. And the fact that if I persisted, I could always get them to do it. In the therapy, in the residential treatment center, when new people would come in and I would pull something similar, someone who had already been there and been through some of my groups would say, look, go ahead and give in. In the end, he's going to nag you till you do it. And so that's the way it turned out. In 1973, I gave a questionnaire to college students at the University of Houston about college students who had been raised either as Baptist, Methodists, or Catholics, and their family had attended church, and they had attended church with their family without ever really thinking about it. There were a few students that I had who didn't fall in these categories, but mostly they did. That's the way Houston was. And it turns out that when they went away to college, they went to church if they enjoyed it. Nobody believed anything bad would happen to them, that the deity would inflict punishment on them. There were people like that, perhaps, but they weren't in my classes. They treated this like any other kind of activity. And what we find is that, at least psychologists have reported, that people who attend church regularly tend to be happier than other people. Well, people who attend church regularly, if they're like these people, are doing it because they enjoy it. That's the reason they do it. So there's a lot that people can enjoy. What was notable was that people enjoyed different things. They enjoyed the camaraderie, they enjoyed being part of a community, they enjoyed the music, they enjoyed a lot of different things. Some enjoyed finally returning to the religion of their childhood after having wandered off. All kinds of stuff. But it was a nice atmosphere of peacefulness that they could enjoy. So we had this. Why do people go to church? Pleasure. Why do they not? Because their experience has been that it's not pleasant, and they can make better use of their time and energy. I'm going to go on to, was this 7? 8. This is 8? Okay, so it looks like there's going to be a 9.